My earliest memory is riding in my grandfather's boat, arm over the side, hand in the spray. I've spent much of the rest of my life chasing this feeling. All of that has led to this, the wooden boat experience.
No, you're not watching the wrong video. With the cold weather, I've begun using our wood-fired oven again.
So after the pizza, I'll be pulling the fire out of the oven and doing some bread. So now, so it looks cool, we gotta cut it. That will open up. We'll make some really nice crust. When they don't bend, they're done.
The first thing I did this week, before eating pizza, was to finish winterizing the limen. The engine was drained of water, but some still sat in the exhaust, obviously. Boy, for a bunch of guys and girls that have put their boats up for the winter, it is nice to hear that sweet engine exhaust music. This week is mostly about the big push. A push to get the Chris Craft hull to primer before winter. Get it flipped over and spend the winter working on the inside and the decks.
First I'm going to order up or open up this thing from Total Boat. Let's see what they sent me. The 2-part epoxy primer that we're going to need to finish up the hull. Of course, some of this stuff. There's some stickers from Total Boat. And a hat from Total Boat. And a t-shirt from Total Boat. Now, one more thing we got here. And this is going in the boat shed. So thanks, Total Boat. We did try this. I bought some of this summer, And I think you guys remember from, I'll check and see what episode it is, and I'll put the link up above. I tried this, and I did it when it was too hot. So they sent me this. They want me to try it out again and see how it works in more normal temperatures. And I think it was really my fault before. I didn't like the way it went on, but I loved the way that it sanded. So I'm hoping that with the temperatures being a little cooler now, it'll go on really awesome and sand really awesome. So I'm looking forward to putting this on the bottom of the Chris Craft. So thanks again, Total Boat.
In typical fashion, at the very end, or nearly, of scraping the bottom paint, I'm finally figuring out what the best technique is. No heat, a mechanical scrape, 36 grit sandpaper on the hand sander, and 60 grit on the orbital. When are you going to learn to run a sander, huh?
Well, this is day one of the big push on this hull because I want this primed and flipped before it gets too cold, which is going to mean a lot of work, and it's going to mean some pretty crappy looking filming like today where it's kind of dark out today and even by light, and that's going to look really bad, but I don't care. We've got to get this done before it gets too cold and we start doing other things.
Don't forget GlassGoat.com, where all the WBE merchandise hangs out.
I know it seems like a simple thing, but don't take these screws out without pulling the fairing compound or whatever it is that's in the head of the screw, because if you try to, you're going to end up with a strip screw and a lot of problems. So take the time to go through with a little pick and pick that out so that when you come in here with your drill or whatever you're going to use, that it seats all the way like that is. Especially with the power, if you're using something like I am here, there's two things that happen. One is it doesn't get deep enough because you didn't clean it out. The other is as you go along putting it in or pulling out the screw, sometimes because you're not, especially right now because I'm only using one hand because I'm holding the camera, I won't get enough pressure in there, and the driver will start to work its way out a little bit like that, and then when you turn it on, it strips it. So two hands is always best, one hand on the back. Make sure it's seated in deep. Make sure your drill's on one so you're not going too fast. The screws that are coming out of here are number 8s. The ones that I'm putting in are number 10s. So you can see that the holes are a little ragged, the countersinks here. So I'm going through and hitting each hole with a number 10 countersink, set for the right depth of the screw. It cleans everything up. I already got those two. There's one there, and so you can see what they look like before and then after. They're a little bit bigger, and once I hit them with a little sandpaper, the edges are cleaned up. Don't forget when you're using a countersink that you're matching the countersink up to the screw. As you can see here, it needs to be adjusted a little bit because the countersink's going in too deep. So I'm going to adjust that right now. Now we got the right length. Tighten it back up. Both of them evenly. Don't crank down too hard. And now that countersink is ready to be used. And it is this is the number 10 and a number 10 screw. You can see I put the screws in and gave them a turn with the hand screwdriver, and then moved this Frearson bit over to the drill. Now the reason I'm using the drill instead of the impact is I can put it on number 1,
it'll go slower and I have a little bit more control. I don't want to use the impact on this. And I am using a Frierson or Reed and Prince, not a Phillips head. There is a difference. You can see that in between here, those are sharp corners, not rounded like a Phillips head is. Now, when I put these screws in to the garboard into the keel, which is mahogany, I did not use any wax on the screws there. But I am going to use some here because this is going through the plywood, but then into white oak, which is a lot harder on the screw. A little bit of wax on there really helps the screw go into that white oak, and you end up hopefully not snapping any of them off. There is a pattern to what I'm doing with this drill with these screws. Running it in fairly fast at first. I'm on 1 though, not on 2 high speed. Figure I start, that's where that, I know there was a screw in there. Let's go to this one. Fairly fast. At the end, slow down and make sure you know what's happening so you don't strip it. And you can see when you tighten down that this pulls together a little bit. This strake pulls to this one. So you can watch that happen. I'm going to be very careful in this instance because I'm reaching out a lot. So I'm going to make sure I'm putting pressure down into the screw because this is a place where you'll strip screws. Obviously that rib is very good. It's drawing that garboard right down onto the rib. You can see it moving. Nice. After some epoxy work and then a bit more fairing, that was enough for Monday. Okay, we've got, looks like about 44 right now. Let's see what it says it is. Excuse me, it says it's 30 outside. Heading up to 36 today. Cloudy and sunny. That's alright. Hopefully we'll get up to mid-50s in here later and work in here later. Tomorrow looks great though. It is 49 by 10 o'clock. Nice. And not a lot of sun, so it's not a day to put on any more of the fairing compound, but we can sand and strip on a day like today, so that's what I'm going to do. I don't have a lot of time this morning because I've got some things I've got to do, but I wanted to get some fairing compound on here. It's starting to warm up, but I knew that these would be a little hard to work with in the morning, so I took them inside last night. So they're nice and warm, so it's mixing up real well. So let's get some fairing compound on. We're really moving along now. This is Thursday morning, and I'll do more later today, but I need to get on editing. The warm temps for the next week will help to speed up the process. The hull won't be perfect when we flip it, but it'll be primed, and finishing it in the spring will be easier. There will be some fairing to do on top of the primer, but not much. Thanks for being aboard the Wooden Boat Experience. Check out our Patreon page for bonus content and to help support this channel. I'm Scott.ouderkirk, and I'll see you next week.